Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Go to Bolt Fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, welcome to May. In the NFL offseason, feels like we got a ways to go before some of the fun stuff in Chargers training camp. Hey, we got the Hall of Fame game this year as well, man. But I think May is a really good time to dissect and really study in on what we got in the NFL draft. Very significant NFL draft for the Chargers this year. I think that's going to be the case for this team over the next couple of seasons. Feels like the Chargers' success and failure in the draft over the next few seasons maybe might dictate their ability to make it to the Super Bowl in the Jim Harbaugh era, seeing as Jim Harbaugh does have a unique perspective on these players and will provide some solid value throughout his time, drafting prospects that he knows from his time at Michigan. Very exciting to think about how the Chargers may be made out in this draft in terms of value. I want to focus in on the biggest steals of the draft for the Chargers in 2025, which I think there were a few pretty good ones, man. I actually narrowed it down to 4 players that I think are really going to overperform where they were drafted, make a big impact with the team now and going forward, whether it be from, a rotational aspect, a depth aspect, even a starting aspect of the roster. Pretty exciting to think what the Chargers were able to accomplish this year. Joe Ortiz, absolutely fantastic. And this team's going to look vastly different, especially on offense this season, due to what the Chargers accomplished in the draft. Now, guys, of course, Omarion Hampton, one of my favorite players of the year, drafted to the Chargers. I was absolutely ecstatic. Does this qualify as a value? I don't know. A lot of people have a differing opinion on the running back position being selected in the first round, but I think the player is going to be fantastic. This video is going to more so focus on the value that we got maybe in some of the other rounds that could pop off for the Bolts as soon as this season. So before we do kick things off, man, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers take advantage of the gimme pick on screen. Also, if you guys would be swell and hitting that like and sub, helps the channel out a lot and definitely helps us get the word out of the amazing Chargers season that is coming up this year. With that being said, let's get into it, man. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Your Los Angeles Chargers' biggest draft steals of the 2025 season. These are guys that I have pretty high expectations for in terms of their ceilings, we'll say. Their floors actually look pretty good considering what the Chargers are going to be using them for in their specific system and scheme. But I do think the ceilings is what gets me most excited about all of these guys coming in from the draft. So we talked about Omarion Hampton. Very excited to see him. I think he's going to transform the offense in ways that we couldn't imagine as a Chargers fandom. But the guys that I think really stand a chance from taking this team over the top and making them Super Bowl contenders over the course of the Jim Harbaugh era land in the value areas. And we're going to start actually here in the second round. Some people may say, Director, value second round, kind of when he was projected, this and that. I think in terms of value for Tre Harris, you're going to see a very nice return from where he was drafted in the second round, just like Ladd McConkey was last season, to how they actually perform at the wide receiver position this year. And again, Ladd is such a great example of how the Chargers can really nail the draft for the position of wide receiver. And that's why I think the 2023 draft gave us some, a great preview of what to expect from Tre Harris. Their evaluation of wide receivers is top notch. And it actually started in the first round of last season's draft, where the Chargers, outside of Malik Nabers, had Brian Thomas as the number one wide receiver on their board, where it was a year of the Marvin Harrisons and, the Roma Dunzes. The Chargers knew where it was at. And, obviously, Brian Thomas ended up being the number one rookie wide receiver from last season, which was quite impressive. And that shows you the Chargers' insight on the position, where they knew the guy to draft at wide receiver if they decided to take one at number 5. And, some of the top options were gone. And then they also had the insight to go get their guy in the second round at wide receiver in Ladd McConkey, which was very exciting because of how well that panned out for the Chargers. He ended up having the best rookie wide receiver season for the Chargers in franchise history, which brought a lot of faith in me. I think as a fan, watching this team work in the draft, what they accomplished last year, brings a lot of faith in me as a fan that they know what they're doing, especially at positions that they really hit at. They understood the wide receiver position in the first round. They really hit in the second round. I am expecting some big things from Trey Harris, even in his rookie season going forward. And Harris may have ended up being the best wide receiver in the second wave of the position draft. And what I mean by that is that you had your first round guys, Matthew Golden, a lot of people were looking for, even Jaden Higgins kind of, pushing himself in that realm. There was a group of guys that were kind of clumped together that, were all being drafted here and there. Jack Bech was a pretty big one. We'll get to more here in just a little bit, but it feels like the Chargers really did understand where Trey Harris was on their board, where he was in, comparison to the other wide receivers, and how the fit would also affect his performance with the Chargers. Because this really is one of the best fits you're going to find in terms of wide receiver in the draft, going to the Chargers with Justin Herbert, a team that is very needy at boundary wide receiver. He checks a lot of boxes for this team. 6'3", 210 pounds. That's a big body check mark on that list, right? He's an incredible man coverage beater as well, man. He graded at 95 versus man on PFF. That's the number 1 player in the nation. His release package, physicality, and yes, his speed really help him destroy man coverage. Chargers needed a man coverage beater. You can check that box as well. He's also a very talented contested catch weapon, which is something that Justin Herbert specifically likes to utilize on this team, seeing of his time with, Mike Williams, who is back on the roster. Great developmental, relationship they're going to have going forward. You can check that box as well, that big contested catch guy in the perimeter for Justin Herbert, which, mind you, Trey Harris may end up being one of the best contested catch wide receivers of this draft class, which is pretty impressive. There's some pretty good ones, man. Again, there's some big body guys out there. Even Pat Bryant, that was drafted pretty high by the Broncos, that provides some pretty good. And obviously the Raiders too had one of my guys as well in Thornton, who had a really good contested catch rate as well. Either way, I think that Trey Harris could end up being the top of the class, which would really help Justin Herbert out in finding some familiarity in that combo, which really does start making me feel like we're seeing a new era of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, in the Justin Herbert era now being ushered in with Ladd McConkey and now Trey Harris. It's going to be very exciting, man. Trey Harris also a very good blocker, something the Chargers very much so value from the position. His size helps him fit the toughness criteria of the Bolts, which is also very important. He's deceptively good at route running too. I think a lot of people write him off because, you saw a lot of curls and goes and comebacks. That's not exclusively his game. You'll say, hey, that's mainly what he ran at Ole Miss, which is true. But then you go look at his other routes run. They were very good, man. Very, very good. So I think his route tree is going to expand with the Chargers. I think you're going to see a lot more variety from what he can do. And honestly, I think it's going to take that I'm not going to say stereotype off of him, but just, that where you're pinholing him in just those few routes, I think that's going to be removed off of him as a player. He's also a very good red zone target, man. This is something that the Chargers sorely have been lacking the last few seasons. I think Quentin Johnston has done a decent job at using his size in the red zone. That's one thing, that area that I really do believe that he excelled at last year in improving from his rookie season. But, man, you give me a little bit of Trey Harris in the red zone, man. I think you're going to see some awesome stuff. So you get the perfect complement of Ladd McConkey. He checks a whole lot of boxes, and he sets himself up for success in this particular system. And again, I have all the faith in the world. The Chargers got the right guy. He was selected before some big names, like we said, Jack Bech, Jalen Knoll. Some people even had Trey Harris ranked above Jaden Higgins. It's exciting. It's exciting. And I think, again, the Chargers' grades give me hope, very high hope, that he could reach his ceiling in this environment, which many are comparing. If you're looking for a ceiling, many are comparing Trey Harris to like a DK Metcalf, an AJ Brown, a Michael Thomas in his prime, which is very exciting to think about. I think this environment gives you the best chance of that actually happening. And what's crazy is that even at his worst, like let's say his floor comps of Alec Pierce and Michael Gallup, these are also premium wide receiver 2 options to help elevate Ladd McConkey and the entire offense. So here's kind of my bold prediction of what's going to go on in terms of value from Trey Harris this season. Bold prediction: Trey Harris will dominate camp as the Chargers' new outside wide receiver, which again, I'm not trying to shove down Quentin Johnston. I think he just deserves a different role on this team as a Z receiver that works underneath Mike Williams, and Trey Harris likely see some time shared on the perimeter. But I think it's going to be very hard to keep Trey Harris off of the field. I think he's highly productive. He put up, like 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, only 8 games last year. He's a producer. And I think he's going to put up some nice stats. Not super crazy, but enough to really help unlock some aspects of the offense. I have him at 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's going to rank inside the top 5 rookie wide receivers of this class this year, I do believe. But his contributions, I feel, are going to be more felt by unlocking other aspects of the offense, like Ladd McConkey, who could easily, with some more space, some more help, go for 1,300 yards this season. And this will be the cherry on top to the Chargers' passing game, making him a legit threat, man, while the ground game revs up to a top 5 rushing offense in the NFL. I really do think adding that perimeter wide receiver with the physicality, the contested catch ability, the field stretching capability, all really unlocks so many aspects of this team. It's going to be an exciting one to watch. All right? Next up. This is one that a lot of people deemed a really, really good value for the Chargers. Give me one. Kyle Kennard, man. I'm not going to be the first person to tell you that this dude slid to the Chargers in the 4th round. Many had this labeled as a steal from the get-go. Okay, Kennard was projected mid to late 3rd round, I think, by a lot of people. The Chargers, I think more specifically on PFF, it was in the 80s, like 81 or something like that. The Chargers would select him all the way in the 4th round, which in and of itself is what? The definition of a steal, like we're trying to show off in this video. And Kennard's going to give you exactly that. He led the SEC in sacks with 11.5 last season and won the SEC Defensive Player of the Year award in that program, man. Very exciting to think about the Chargers getting a player with so much pedigree in these later rounds, but also what the Joe Ortiz perspective could bring to what his, talent could translate to the team. Because Joe Ortiz, he's got a great history of finding, talent at the edge position in the later rounds. When in his time with the Ravens, they selected Zadarius Smith in the 4th round, Matthew Judon in the 7th round. It feels like we got another banger here, baby. Kennard, he faced some of the best tackles in the country, including number 4 overall pick Will Campbell. So we know that he's up to the challenge. But the quality does exist there. And you put him in with the Chargers, I think he's going to start his career off very well. He's going to be a very capable rotational pass rusher, which is all we're asking of him in his rookie season. And I think that's a very appropriate way to usher him into the pros. Get him in here with some vets like Khalil Mack and Tuli Tuipulotu and even Bud Dupree. The environment that the Chargers are providing make it much more likely that he can reach his ceiling. Very similar to what we just talked about with Trey Harris. Because of Trey Harris's exposure to, Justin Herbert and the vets on the offense and the way the Chargers want to utilize, the run game, it's going to unlock versions of Trey Harris that wouldn't have been possible on another roster. Kyle Kennard is in one of the best situations to reach his ceiling in the NFL in the Jesse Minter environment. With help from Mack, Tuli, Jesse Minter, of course, I wouldn't be shocked if he develops into a beastly edge 2 opposite of Tuli Tuipulotu even as soon as next season. That's the beauty of this situation. That's not required. Because Kennard can make a solid career of being a edge 3 in rotation for a long time, because the Chargers really value edge 3. Not a lot of teams will say edge 3 is something that we need a premium at. The Chargers do. A lot depends on, I would say, edge, safety, interior defensive line. A lot depend on those positions. Where other positions that are important in other teams, like corner and linebacker, maybe not as important because they benefit from what the edge position and the safety position are bringing to the table. Very interesting to see how the Jesse Minter defense has panned out for guys like this. So in his rookie season, I think Kyle Kennard, I'm going to predict a solid 6 sacks. A solid 6 sacks. That means I need to go make sure someone's here to get my kid off the bus from school. Okay, so here's the prediction. Solid 6 sacks in his rookie year, which is substantial, right? That's in range of guys like Bud Dupree, the depth guys that we already have on the roster. I think he's more than capable of producing something like that in a rotational aspect. But his future is what I'm most interested in, because I think he rides the edge 3 train for a few years, like Tuli Tuipulotu did. I think a lot of us believed he was capable of taking, edge 2 responsibilities as soon as last year. But this gives the Chargers an option to add a veteran, player until they feel Kennard is ready for that torch. But again, it's not a requirement. Kennard could be a solid, edge 3 for the foreseeable future, and it would be a perfect fit for him. But I do think his ceiling of being a really good complement to Tuli as an edge 2 does exist, and that's why I think he's a great value here, right? Let's move into, oh man, this is going to be a fun one. Oronde Gadsden. Or we'll say Gadsden, okay? This is a guy that, I'm going to be honest, wasn't too far on my radar. I only knew of him because you guys in the chat were talking about Gadsden a lot during our live streams, in the chat, in the comment section of some of my videos for some of the steals. You guys brought up Gadsden a few times. I went and looked him up, and, I thought pretty exciting stuff, right? But I did feel that the Chargers would attack tight end a little bit sooner in this draft, whether it be one of the higher guys like Colson Loveland, if he ended up falling to us, whether it be, Harold Fannin, which is definitely one of my guys in the 3rd and 4th round. But Gadsden, coming in the 5th round is very exciting considering his upside. You know what? As soon as we drafted this guy, I got a call from Dan Wolkenstein from Chargers Unleashed, because this was one of his guys. He was ecstatic that the Chargers selected him in the 5th. He gave us a big breakdown of what to expect from him. It got me pretty pumped. And honestly, after the draft, I did a whole bunch of research on the guy. And yeah, this dude has some very exciting upside, considering a lot of different aspects, but none more so than Ortiz's eye for the position of tight end. Because in his time with the Ravens, they drafted guys like Todd Heap, Dennis Pitta, Mark Andrews, of course, and most importantly, in my opinion, Isaiah Likely. Now, the reason I want to pay attention to Isaiah Likely is because this feels very familiar to that selection for the Ravens. I think it was in 2022, right? Likely was selected in the 4th round of his draft. Here's Gadsden being selected in the 5th round. And they traded up to get him, mind you. Wanted to make sure he wasn't going to slip away somewhere else. They traded up to get Gadsden. Keep that in mind. Both of them selected, in the 4th and the 5th round? And then you start looking at some of the strengths. I actually went and looked at some of the draft profile strengths and weaknesses of Isaiah Likely, and they line up very well with what we're getting in Gadsden. The strengths feel very familiar. Good athlete, what they were labeling Gadsden as, or excuse me, Isaiah Likely as, which is funny because he only ran a 4.82, which isn't terrible for the tight end position, but it's not something you would consider in the range of a good athlete, because Gadsden actually ran a 4.62. Which would have been second at the position in the NFL Combine at the 40, which paints a really good picture of an athlete, right? But let's just say, yeah, for the sake of argument, both are very good athletes. That matches up what Isaiah Likely was being labeled as in his draft as well. Both run like wide receivers, which is something we saw on display the last few years with Isaiah Likely. The biggest reason why we feel a lot of the Ravens fans believe that he may end up being tight end 1 as soon as this season, being ushered in with Mark Andrews maybe stepping down over the next couple of years. Both of them willing blockers. Need work, but both of them very willing. I think Isaiah Likely ended up being a pretty good run blocker after a couple of seasons. I can see it with Gadsden because he's going to be put in an environment where I believe that he's going to bulk up at least a little bit. You get him in the weight room with Ben Herbert, it feels next to impossible that he doesn't put on some poundage. And I do think that's going to help him in his run blocking. Strong hands, can snatch the ball in traffic. Isaiah Likely did that very well in his time with the Ravens, even in his rookie season. Gadsden graded at a 60.7 contested catch rate, which is very good. Very, very good. And I think that really does paint a picture of how well of a receiving option that we may have with Gadsden at tight end. Both are above route runners. Gadsden lined up 327 times in the slot, which I think that was either led or one of the top 2 in the nation at tight end. He took, 73 receptions. This is a wide receiver playing tight end. Big guy. 6'5", 230-ish pounds. Little slender for the position. But man, is he a big target. A lot of these line up with what the Ravens got in Isaiah Likely. This is why Gadsden looks like he could be the next big steal, much like Likely was to the Baltimore Ravens. His 934 yards, 7 touchdowns last year paint a clear picture. He is a weapon for Justin Herbert. Chargers have a solid option this year in Tyler Conklin. I think they're very much so set at the tight end position, not too worried about it this year. So we can definitely work Gadsden in slowly, which is how I feel that's the appropriate way to usher in a new tight end to your offense. Give them some time behind a nice vet. But I honestly have a feeling they're going to have a hard time keeping Gadsden off the field, considering his, athleticism, his size, his speed, and his hands. They all feel like something we've not seen at the position yet for Justin Herbert. And you match those up with Herbert's arm, it does get very exciting. The expectations for Gadsden, I think that he could give us a modest stat line this year. Let's say 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, which is very fair. But the flash is what I'm looking for. The flash in the pan, the big plays, the potential of Gadsden is what I think you're going to see most this season that gets us excited for the future. Because if Gadsden can show us he's a weapon, watch out for him to take the torch as soon as next season. Similar to Isaiah Likely in Baltimore. Maybe they do take a couple of years to usher him in, but it feels like Isaiah Likely's time is very close. Gadsden, it feels like you're going to be looking at a very similar narrative with the Chargers, considering the way they like to draft. So Gadsden, man, watch out. You may be looking at a 6'5", 230-something pound weapon for Justin Herbert that ran a great 4.62 at the combine, or I should say at his pro day. This could be one of the next big weapons, man. A really nice fit. And again, that's why I say Isaiah Likely, Isaiah Likely, Isaiah Likely. We all think of Isaiah Likely a certain way with the Ravens. You're going to think something similar with Gadsden and the Chargers the next season or two. And finally, to wrap up this video, maybe one of the best steals of the draft, period, not just for the Chargers, but period, is RJ Mickens. This is a guy that, I didn't think would be available this late. We ended up getting him in the 6th round, which is pretty impressive. And, it's something that you see a lot. The safety position often slides in the draft. We all know this because of Derwin James, right? How did we get him? Well, the positional value, right? And that's kind of how the league looks at the position of safety. Safety for the Chargers, however, is a different story. That's one of the most important pieces to the Minter defense. And we saw that due to the evidence of how many guys they brought in last year. We recruited everybody. Elijah Molden, who stuck around, which is awesome. Eddie Jackson, Terrell Edmonds, Tony Jefferson. All these big names at safety, they were on the Chargers at one point. And it's because the Chargers want flexibility and intelligence at all times from the position. That's why I think RJ Mickens is a great value, because he does just that. Mickens is such a perfect fit. And like we said with, all these players previous, he's going to benefit beautifully from the situation the Chargers are providing him as a player, even at the 6th round. Mickens, great fit. And he's going to see more playing time than we all think, even from a guy drafted so late. You're going to see him on the field a little bit this season. Maybe, again, more than even I think. He's 6'5", 210 pounds, great size for defending the run. He's also good at it. He's good at defending the run. Clemson lined him up everywhere. Corner, slot, mostly at deep safety and in the box, which is definitely where the Chargers like to see the flexibility from the position. It's perfect for how they like to operate. This keeps Derwin James flexible. You can keep him up top. You can take him down, close to the line of scrimmage, blitz the quarterback. Whatever you want to do with Derwin James is possible because of the depth you have the position with Elijah Molden and now R.J. Mickens, who's going to be great, man. It's going to provide some solid competition for Tony Jefferson. That's all I'm going to say. Mickens feels like the new hotness. Mickens also grades very well in coverage, 89.9 on PFF last year. So if you need him up high, he can handle it. He ran, I think, a 4.49 too, so he's an athlete. He's a fast dude. I honestly don't know how he made it down this far. He feels like one of those guys that could easily pop from the later rounds due to impeccable scheme fit, talent, and athleticism. Mickens checks all the boxes for me. This actually feels very similar to a situation, again, with the Ravens. If you're looking at Joe Ortiz and the way he likes to draft, he drafted a man by the name of Geno Stone a few years back, 2020. In the 7th round, and he ended up popping, getting extensions. He was very, very good with the Ravens in his time there. I think he ended up getting signed elsewhere, but that's just because he was a great player, great selection in the 7th round. And I see the very similar upside for R.J. Mickens, man. I predict a solid rotation for Mickens this season. Maybe if we get lucky, an interception or two, but more importantly, he's going to really free up Derwin James this year. And I think he's going to have a permanent role going forward as that safety 2 behind, Derwin James or Alohi Gilman or whatever. It also provides flexibility if the Chargers don't extend a guy like Alohi, that maybe, Elijah Molden and R.J. Mickens takes in that spot later. But either way, Mickens going to be a great fit here. I think you're going to see more production out of him than you think, and I think you're going to see more action from him than you think even in his rookie year. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. You let me know what you think of these steals. You guys let me know if there's any more steals that the Chargers may end up with. I think, our tackle from Pitt could end up being a pretty nice depth, even on maybe even, piece to compete against Zion Johnson, which would be kind of insane. A lot of people really, really excited to think about, what Jamari Caldwell could bring to the table. But these were the 4 guys I felt most passionate about that are going to bring some solid value from where they were drafted and impact with the team on offense and defense in terms of winning games. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Yeah, man. Watch out for Trey Harris, dude. I think you're going to see some nice plays from him this season.